Here we're on the front of our Heartland Prowler 271 SBR. We're going to be doing a technical walkthrough like you would on the date of delivery for your unit with a technician. We're going to be going over some of the components on our unit, give you a few tips and tricks on operation. If you want more information on these items, or if your items differ from what you see here, you can find more information on our YouTube channel under the playlist Hap's Helpful Hacks. We're going to start up front here. We have our 7-way plug. That 7-way plug is going to plug into your truck and transfer all of your lights from your vehicle into your camper for all your turn signals, running lights, etc. And we're also going to have a charge line on here that's going to feed off of your alternator system, and it's going to charge that battery while you're traveling down the road. Last thing on this 7-way plug is off of your brake controller. You have a line that runs here, and it's going to signal the brakes to stop depending on the output that's on your brake controller. Now, speaking of brakes, we're also going to have our breakaway cord right here. A breakaway cord is that silver cable with a loop on it. That needs to be attached to our receiver hitch where we hook our chains up. We loop it in there, maybe with a lanyard or something, because if our hitch fails where we have it connected to our truck, this pin is intended to pull out with the cable and pull out of our breakaway box. This again is part of our braking system. It will activate the brakes on the trailer to bring it to a safe stop. And if we don't have a good 12-volt battery in here or a battery at all, those brakes are not going to work whenever this pin activates. So we need to be mindful of that. Make sure we have a good battery on our system for that safety feature to work. We also need to make sure that pin is inserted into that box. Otherwise, those brakes will be active if that pin is not in there and inserted properly. So once it's in, leave it in and just check it and make sure everything is good before you hit the road. We have our 12-volt powered tongue jack right here in the front, up, down. We have a little light on there as well. You can follow that wire down. You're generally going to have a fuse on that line. If your jack isn't working, I suggest checking that fuse first. Also checking your battery voltage to ensure that you have good battery voltage to operate. If for some reason that jack just won't work, you can pull that rubber cap off the top of it and use your manual crank handle on there to manually crank that jack up and down. Behind that, we have our dual propane tanks. Our dual propane tanks operate through that dual propane regulator that's in the middle. That regulator does have a little identifier on there that'll tell you either red or green and let you know that that tank is empty or full. It also has a selector switch on there. You choose which tank you want to be your primary. You turn that selector switch to that tank and it will use that tank first. When it runs dry, it will automatically start to pull from that secondary tank, but until you turn that lever to that secondary tank, it may still show empty. Once you swap over to that secondary tank with the lever, you can go ahead and get that primary tank refilled. Behind that, we have our storage for our battery system as well as our battery disconnect behind there in that box. That battery disconnect is for when we store our unit. So if we're storing our unit unplugged, we don't want that battery voltage to run down, so we just turn that battery disconnect off, and it does essentially that. It disconnects our battery from our system. Now, anytime we have it plugged in, we want that disconnect on so the converter system will charge our battery up. On our driver's side, we have our pass-through bay compartment right here. And inside, we'll see our solar panel disconnect right here that will disconnect our solar system. We are pre-wired for that solar system. If we want to upgrade, add solar panels on here, we already have that solar controller and our disconnect. That solar controller converts solar power to charging power for that battery system. Behind that, we have our tire link system made by Lippert. If we want to upgrade that system and add a monitor in there, as well as the sensors on our tires so we can monitor our tire pressure while we're traveling down the road, it is pre-wired for that power. Next thing, in the front and rear, you'll notice our switches right here. These switches are to operate our 12-volt stabilizer jacks. We'll go ahead and run these down after we've leveled our unit. They are not levelers, they are stabilizers only. So in order to level our unit, we would go ahead and purchase those stacker blocks. We set them up and we back our camper up on that in order to level our unit from left to right. In order to level it front to back, we'll use that front electric tongue jack to raise it up and down and get it level. From there, we run these stabilizer jacks down, and that will help reduce the movement that we feel in our unit whenever we are camping. Now, there is an override for these on the opposite side. We'll go over that now. So here we are back on the side of our unit opposite of our motor in and our switch, and we have this handle We can see this handle has a little slice in it, and it will line up with the post on that jack. We line it up and we can manually run that jack up and down if we need to. Under your slide out, you are going to have a gray tank. That's for your second gray tank system right there, where you'll hook your hose up to drain that out. We'll cover a little more information on that system when we go to the rear. Our slide out is going to be an electric slide. On the opposite side, you'll see a hole in the J-wrap to be able to override this system. For whatever reason, if it isn't working, you can override and run that slide in and out. It is going to be 12-volt operated with a thermal fuse, and that thermal fuse is going to be located in that battery disconnect box. Behind our slide out is our 50-amp service cord. We want to go ahead and put that in, turn it to the right, lock it in. We also have that retainer ring. We want to go ahead and put that on there so that plug can't fall out. There's no gaps, cause arcing or anything like that. Once we have it plugged in, then we can plug it into our power pole. Of course, we want to make sure that our ACs are off before we plug in or unplug our systems, so we're not causing any surges to our compressor. Above that, we have our coax cable for our park cable. If we have that at the campground, we'll hook our coax up to here. We can scan for cable channels on the interior. Have our outdoor shower system right here with our hot and our cold. And then behind that, we have our city water connection. Our city water connection is used for whenever we have a water source at the campground or wherever we're camping. We run that water hose over here, hook it up, and then we will have water at all of our fixtures. Now it's here we can see another 12-volt powered stabilizer jacks, just like the ones in the front. And down here at the bottom, we see another sewer connection, similar to the one that we have under our slide out, but this one has gray and black tanks. So this gray tank that's under the slide out and the gray tank here, those are both going to be like sink and shower water that goes into there. Those valves you can leave open all the time as long as you have your water hose connection and a port at the campground. However, your black tank system, which is your wastewater from your toilet, that needs to stay closed until you're ready to dump that tank. We want to make sure that it stays closed so water stays in that system and the solids that are in there don't solidify. So whenever we are ready to dump, we go ahead and have our hose hooked up, we pull that black tank valve and let everything drain out. You do have a black tank flush on the other side. We'll show you where that is. We'll hook a water hose to it, and that provides a water jet in that tank to help flush that system out, push everything towards that hose and dump it. Now that does a pretty good job. If you want another level of tip, you can do this, but be mindful you can overflow your tanks, so be cautious of it. This is your fair warning. Manufacturers aren't going to tell you to do this because of that reason, but it's a pretty simple process as long as we monitor our tank. So we have our monitor on the inside, we can check it from there, but really you don't have to do it for very long. You close that black tank valve while your black tank flush is running, open that valve back up and just let it dump out. You're just letting a couple of gallons of water build up in there and let it dump out. It picks everything up, kind of moves it this way. Once you're done, shut off your black tank flush, close that black tank valve, go to the inside of your unit, hold your toilet pedal down. That way you can go ahead and put a couple of gallons of clean, fresh water in there and then add your chemicals. On our driver's side, top corner right here, we're gonna notice we have that bracket. That bracket is for our Lippert on-the-go ladder system. If you wanna purchase that telescopic ladder, we can hook that onto there and gain access to our roof. We need to do this because our roof requires maintenance. We need to wash it at least twice a year, and we need to get up and check the roof after trips to make sure no tree limbs drug across there, poked holes in the rubber, and we need to check that sealant every 60 to 90 days to ensure that we don't have any cracking, peeling, deterioration, anything on that sealant. Same thing on all of our sidewalls here, anything like that, we need to check every 60 to 90 days to make sure it's not deteriorating. Our manufacturer requires that we do this to be able to stay in warranty for any water leaks or anything. They're not going to participate if we're not maintaining our unit properly. On the rear of our unit, we have our Furrion backup camera system to provide us with that backup camera power. We can add that on there and see what's behind us while we're traveling or when we're backing up. Our back bumper has plastic caps on the end. We can pull those off and use that as our storage for our sewer hose if we wish. Of course, we have access to our back storage. On our passenger side, of course, we have our pass-through storage here, not much else right there, but we do have a quick connect down here on the frame for our propane system if we want to go ahead and add a grill or anything out here, you do have that connection that pulls off of those tanks in the front. Here on the side, we do have our freshwater connection. We can go ahead and put a hose in there, fill that up from our house, and fill our fresh tank. This is our onboard storage in the event that we are going camping somewhere that doesn't have a water source. We can fill that up and use our 12-volt pump to provide water to all our fixtures. Now, this does add extra weight to your unit, so be mindful of that. Only carry what's necessary, and we also want to make sure that we drain that tank out for two reasons. If we don't need it, we don't want the extra weight, and number two, we want to make sure that tank stays sanitized. That water can get stagnant over time, so make sure that we drain it out. We can do that by that blue hose down here on the bottom. One of those is going to drain your water out of that tank. Your other two hoses on there, your other blue and red, are going to be your low point drains. We open those up and we want to winterize our unit. We have more information on that, of course, in our helpful hacks section. You also have your 110 powered outlet, GFCI protected. If we have any issues with that, we're going to cover how to reset those GFCI outlets when we go to the interior. Here we have our Suburban tanked water heater. This is going to be electric and propane. We'll go over the operation of that when we go inside, as well as our Suburban furnace, which will also be gas operated too. You'll notice the vent above the window next to your exterior speakers. That vent is for the range hood vent above your 3-burner stove. If you want to exhaust this out, it does have 2 tabs to be able to open that up. If we want to close it off when we store it so no rodents or anything build any nests, we can do that as well. Now, of course, we do have our 12-volt powered awning extended by the flip of a switch, and we have our awning lights up there as well that we can go ahead and flip on, also 12-volt activated. We need to make sure when we have it out, we have it pitched to one side or the other, either the front or the back. Pretty easy to do. We loosen this knob right here, and we go ahead and pull that awning arm down, and we tighten it up so water can drain off of there. We do this so water doesn't puddle up on that awning, causing the awning to fall down, any damage, anything like that. Any water that might get on there is going to be light dew, light rain, AC runoff, anything like that. If we do get storms or heavy rain, anything beyond light rain, we need to roll that awning in. It's not built to go ahead and take that kind of abuse. Also, you have high winds, roll that awning in. If you're leaving for an extended period of time, don't take a chance, roll it in and store it. We want to make sure we do that because manufacturers aren't going to participate in damage. This would end up being an insurance claim. When we're ready to roll that awning in, we loosen that knob up right there, and then we allow that arm to extend back out before we roll it in. Our entry door is going to have friction controlled hinges, so you're going to feel a little resistance on there. This is to control that door from being able to be slammed closed by the wind. We're also going to have our Lippert solid steps down here. Those solid steps add safety going in and out, nice, solid, not flimsy steps like the older styles. And we can go ahead and store it by lifting it up. Want to make sure that entry door is open all the way so we're not dragging that clip on the frame or the screen or anything like that. Put it up in there, turn that yellow lever to make sure it's locked in. Pull it down, once again, turn that yellow lever. We're going to pull our steps down. And after we level our unit, we want to make sure we level our steps. We can do that by removing the pin right here and adjusting the legs properly. Reinsert your pin. That's important not only for the safety of getting in and out of the unit, but when you open and close this door, you don't want the bottom of the door frame to hit the step frame right there, causing damage. We also want to make sure that our threshold is at the proper level so our door will actually shut properly as well while we're camping. All right, so right when we walk into our entry door, of course, we have our control center right here. We can see the levels of all of our tanks right there. And this may not match your unit as far as how many tanks you have. This is a generic panel. So if you only have one black tank, you only have one black tank, that black one is going to be yours. The same thing for the grays. So over here we have our water pump. Our water pump is that 12-volt pump that's going to pull from the freshwater tank to supply water to our fixtures. That's that tank that we filled up outside. If we don't have a city water connection, that's what we'll use. If we have a city water connection, kick that system off. If the tank is empty, kick that system off. That pump will only come on demand whenever we are using water. We have our water heater system right here. We have LP gas and electric. That LP gas will kick it on. Of course, our propane tanks need to be on. That system will begin to initiate. We have a DSI fault light that's going to come on up here until that system lights. If it never turns off or it kicks back on later, that means that we do have a fault in that system and we need to have it checked out. Here is our 110 water heater or heating element right there. We kick that on and that will pull if we are hooked into shore power. Now you can turn both of those on if you want. It'll help heat that water a little bit quicker in that tank in between cycles. We have our light 1, light 2 that's going to control our interior and exterior lights under our awning for the exterior. And we have our slide out button right here and our awning button right here. All these are going to be 12-volt operated components for our unit, and we can, if we have any problems, we can check our 12-volt fuse panel that we'll look at a little bit later. All right, in our living room, of course, we have our backer for our TV. We have our coax plate right here where we'll hook up for our antenna or for our cable channels. We'll notice a little green light on there, a little button on there. And that button, when we push it off and on, we'll notice that green light turns off and on. A green light is our 12-volt antenna booster. If we are scanning for antenna channels on our TV, we want that light on so it'll help boost the signal, pick up more channels, make them clear. If we are scanning for cable channels from the campground, we want that light off to make sure we aren't scrambling the channels from the cable. And here we have a linear series basic radio system, Bluetooth options on there, and we also have our zones for our exterior and interior speakers. We can control those A and B, turning them off and on. Now you'll see a HDMI option right here in the front. Basically that is just a pass-through. If you want to hook a gaming system here, that'll follow through to this HDMI here on the back of the TV. That way you don't have to pull the TV off in order to hook that cable up. You can just pass through right there. Although the options on here are pretty basic. All right, over our stovetop, we have that light and vent fan. We talked about that vent cover on the outside. We need to have it open when we have that vent fan on, otherwise the air won't exhaust out. Our Suburban 3-burner stove glass top right here needs to be down when we're in travel. It can also be down for more counter space. When we use our stovetop, we need to go ahead and kick it up like so and choose what burner we want to use. Of course, our propane needs to be on. We turn to that burner option for light, and then we're going to manually light that burner until it kicks on, and then we go ahead and high, low, wherever we want it to go. Now, important thing to know about our gas systems is if we store our unit, we turn our tanks off, that LP is going to dissipate out of the line, causing us to have air in our system. Same thing will happen whenever you change your tanks. So I always suggest to campers when you first head out to the campground, you turn your propane system on. You want to come over to that stovetop and bleed the air out of those lines. We do that simply by picking a burner, turning it on, and lighting it. May take a little bit of time for that air to circulate out there. Just keep clicking away until it lights. Once it lights, let it run for about 30 to 60 seconds and get all that air out of the system. You only have to do it that one time once you're opening the system. Once you close the system, store it for a while, you may have to do it again. We suggest doing this before you go operate things like your propane system or your furnace system to make sure you don't have air in the system, and it reduces the opportunities for those items to go into a fault. Our oven down here, our oven is going to be a manual light as well, and we're going to turn that knob right here on the right all the way to pilot, and we have to push that knob down in order for it to emit gas out of that pilot. Once we're pushing it down, we have to get that manual lighter, stick it up under there, and light that pilot. Once it's lit, may take a little bit of time because it's still going to be bleeding some air out for the first time. But once it's lit, we hold that button down for another 30 to 60 seconds, and then we turn to our desired temperature, and that burner tube should light up. If it didn't, we'll just kick it back over to pilot on, push that button down, and relight it. Let it sit for about 30 seconds, and then try it again. All right, our 12-volt refrigerator. Of course, we're going to have a travel latch to help keep our doors closed during travel. We open it up, we have our options for cold to colder down here at the bottom, as well as one for our fridge. That one will be a turnstile knob. To turn this system completely off and on, you have that on-off button right there on the right. We can just hold it down and then let off, and that will turn that system off. To turn it back on, once again, hold it down 10 seconds and it will kick back on. Important thing to know about our fridge and freezer is we don't have drain tubes on here. So whenever you go to store your unit, you shut this off, power's off, that freezer is going to defrost. You're going to have water in there. We need to clean all that out, wipe our fridge down. That way that water doesn't leak out of our system and damage any of our wood components around our refrigerator, causing any damage. And because manufacturers aren't going to participate in that kind of repair, so we need to be mindful of that. Make sure we are taking care of defrosting that unit properly. Behind me we have that Air Excel air conditioner system with our heat option. We'll go over that right now. This is our Air Excel thermostat right here. You'll have one for each separate air conditioning system in your unit. In order to operate, you'll hit that space bar down at the bottom. You'll cycle through. You have the options for fan low and fan high. This will only circulate the air throughout your unit. It will not cool your unit. So when we're ready to go into that cool mode, we hit it one more time and it's going to go into cool high or cool low. This will keep the fan on all the time, whether your compressor circulates off or not. It will continue to blow that fan, so the air may not always be cool while it is initiated. Now, one thing that you need to remember is during the summertime, you really actually want it running on cool high, so it will help clear out that condenser and dry it up during those hot months where that compressor is only cycling every so often. If we want to keep it in auto where that fan shuts off, whenever the compressor shuts off, we're going to hit it one more time. We're going to go into auto and we can choose our low or high speed. Once again, that fan shutting off when the compressor shuts off and it's done cooling. For your central thermostat, more than likely in your living room area, you will have that heat option that will initiate the furnace as well. When we want to turn that system off, we just continue to cycle through till we get to that off position. When we want to change our temperature, we can just use these arrows right here. That will adjust our temperature on our unit. The initial temperature that you have on here, this is your actual room temperature that you have. Down here at the bottom, we do have that COLP detector that's going to warn you of any cautious gases in your unit. You see a little green light glowing down there at the bottom. That lets us know that it does have 12-volt power and it is on. We need to test that monthly, if not every time we go out and take a trip, and make sure that system is working by just pushing that button and checking the chirper on it. We do have an expiration date on here. If it's not stamped on the front, some styles you have to unscrew. You'll see it on the back. They're good for about 5 years and they need to be changed out. So make sure you're following that properly, and check your smoke detector too, and make sure that battery is changed out on there and you're testing the chirper there as well. Not too much to go over in our bunkhouse area, besides the fact that all these need to have their travel latches on there so they're not bouncing around while traveling down the road. And of course, you do have another connection for a TV in the front area of that bunkhouse. All right, here we are in our bathroom. We're going to notice we have a little on-off button on our shower head. That is to be able to turn that shower off and on without having to use these faucets down here. We go ahead and find our sweet spot. We could shut it off and on right there at the top. Generally, you're going to use that whenever you are dry camping. That way, you're trying to conserve the amount of water you're putting into your gray tank as well as the amount of water you're using out of your fresh tank. You can go ahead and shut shower head off rather than fiddling with your faucet head right here, trying to find that sweet spot for your hot water again. If you are hooked to city water, just use it like normal as long as you have that drain connection for your gray tank too. Use as much water and drain as much water as you want. Our toilet system, that's going to lead down to our black tank. Our black tank is where all our sewage is going to go. Our sewage, number one, number two, right? And toilet paper and chemicals are the only thing that's going down here. Nothing else that will cause you some drainage issues getting clogged up in the pipes. To use this system, if you use the number one, just flush it down the drain, send it gone. And number two, we need to fill this bowl up about 3/4 to half to 3/4 of the way. That way we have enough water in that system to help flush those solids down the drain. All right, just before our bathroom area, we have that 110 12-volt control center right here. See all our 110 breakers all labeled here at the bottom. You will have that GFCI outlet on here. That is for all those wet locations, bathroom, kitchen, outside. Anytime those outlets aren't working, we want to go check this outlet here. We can test it by hitting that white button right there. That system will trip out, then we have to turn it off and kick it back on. If we're having issues with resetting that system, want to unplug any appliances that we have on there. Maybe we have too many plugged in, and also those outlets may be wet. You want to check it for that too. To the right, we're going to have our 12-volt fuses. Once again, labeled for all those 12-volt components. If any of those aren't working, we want to come here and check that out. Now behind our system, we have our 12-volt converter that is changing 110 voltage to 12 volts to help maintain that battery. That is essentially a battery charger. You're going to hear that little fan running behind there. Anytime we're plugged into shore power, it's cooling off that system.
Well, we hope you found that resourceful, but wait, there's more information on our Great American RV YouTube channel. This channel right here, find the playlist Hap's Helpful Hacks. We go over different products in this unit and we'll take a deeper dive with more diagnostics, more information, as well as helpful tips when you're out camping. Tell your buddies, tell your friends, like, share, subscribe, do all those awesome things on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you found us, and keep watching here at Great American RV Superstores when we bring the how-to you.